Welcome back to another episode of Good Times Ahead. As you can tell, we're not at the usual studio. We're at a pretty special place. We're at Rink of Dreams. Thank you to Alex and his family for hosting us. Pretty incredible. And today we have with us a very special guest, Tyler Smith. How you doing, brother? First off, I want to address where we're at. Like, your first thoughts when you walked back here.
Yeah, I didn't really know, I guess, what to fully expect, but I think once you walk down the steps, as cliche as it sounds, man, I just couldn't even imagine having this in my backyard. It's beautiful, it's magical. There's just all the elements too, like the lights and everything, and I think even just being in the trees, and yeah, it's fucking amazing.
It is fucking amazing. There's no other way of putting it. Like, when I walked down the first time as well, it's like, my first thought was, holy fuck. Like, the pictures, the videos, they don't do it justice. And just growing up as hockey players, growing up in Canada in general, like, this is literally a kid's dream.
You live for the ODR, man. This is great.
Yeah. What about you spending? Also, I need to address our co-host for the episode, Spencer Herbst.
Thank you. Long-time listener, first-time guest, so very happy to be here, co-host rather. But yeah, we were here earlier and just felt like kid on Christmas Day, nothing other can close describe to it. It's just such a cool setting.
It's amazing, man. Tanner, we miss you. I wish you were here. Good luck this weekend, but sucks to suck, man. But yeah, so just being a hockey player, you played out west. You grew up there. What were the first teams you played for?
Yeah, I grew up in Leduc, 30,000 people or so. We kind of went through the ranks in Leduc, played your Bantam AAAs, your midget AAAs, and you walked around school with a AAA jacket on. You felt like a beauty. Yeah, I look back now and I'm like, what was I doing? But honestly, Leduc's just a really good hockey town. We had some phenomenal players that came through. It's interesting now to just you got buddies in the show, and it's wild, dude. Just thinking playing against them in Pee Wee, and now watching them just play in the show. It's pretty riveting. Yeah, it's
pretty surreal.
Yeah.
Looking back, I feel like there were certain guys you grew
you
me
knew
personally. I was okay, that guy's just better than everyone. He's going to the show, but other guys, it's surprising, and it's nice to see. I know you're from Calgary, and growing up, we played against Manjapan.
Oh yeah.
Unbelievable, man.
Workhorse, dude.
This kid's lights out. You're only 16, so you're only a kid back then, but I would have never assumed Manjapan be scoring 50 goals in the O back-to-back years and then lighting up in the NHL.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal to watch, the transition too. There's so many guys that just don't make that jump. Me is included. But yeah. But yeah, it's back to it. Leduc is just I still home. Calgary's home now too, obviously, but my parents are still there. A lot of my friend group's still there. It's a 2-hour drive from Calgary, so it's really nothing crazy. And the upbringing was phenomenal. Being in that town, that city, whatever you want to call it. I think it was just really special to be a part of that, because we were successful. It is interesting. I had this conversation the other day, and it's I don't know if I would have enjoyed hockey as much if I was, on constant losing teams.
Yeah, it's
but
true.
We just had success every year, it seemed like. And it's it's fun to still be connected to a lot of those people.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
I don't know about you, but it's I find on the teams that you're most successful, you're so close with them. It's you're almost like a family at that point. I can attest to it. I haven't played hockey competitively since I was 16, so a decade ago, and we call them Rebels nights.
Oh yeah.
In the summer, we'll still have go nights where it's 10 or 12 of the boys who are meeting up, and
that's what it's all about.
You have certain nights where holy fuck, I can't believe that.
Yeah.
I can't believe that went down. But now that I'm older, I have a greater appreciation for it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're the same way.
Yeah, no, the teams I played on, like the ones that did really well, those are the guys I'm still close with and still hang out all the time. Like even our men's league team, when our men's league team's doing well, like everyone's fired up, everyone's in a good mood. They want to, you know, hang out, go out on the weekend, stuff like that. So it is true. Winning's fun, right?
Dude, what do they say? It's everyone's happy when you're winning.
Yeah. It's the recipe, dude.
It is. It's true. But just talking about that family atmosphere, like, what would you say are the biggest things that hockey taught you outside of hockey? Like, what are the lessons you've learned from hockey that you can apply in your life now?
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, I say it now quite a bit, like, obviously hockey needs a lot of change.
Yeah, and I want to get into that.
Yeah, like with what's going on right now, like obviously there's a lot that needs to happen. There's a lot that needs to take place. But I think, I mean, I can attest, obviously parents, the upbringing is a huge reason as to why you're the person you are. But like hockey, I think for me was like, I don't know the percentage wise what it makes me today, but like it's just like the camaraderie, the respect, just like the communication. I think even like just like being a leader, like was a huge part of like growing up in the game and like actually challenging yourself to be a leader and like to be a guy that guys can rely on. And I don't know, like I think there's a lot of things that obviously from the dressing room you learn about yourself and or just like even on the ice, like just like how you respond to, you know, difficult situations. And I think it's an emotional game and there's a lot that, you know, goes into it. But I think it's also just like thanks to my parents to like for everything they did. Like it was just like, I mean, definitely some years and it probably wasn't fun handing out a $5,000 check for your kid to play hockey or whatever, however much money it was. But I think even for them, like they learned a lot, they met a lot of people. And it's just like the community that comes with the hockey world is, man, it's so special.
It
like,
is.
It's just like the way that we can rally around like anything or anybody that's going, that's happening in the world. And like we saw it, we felt it. And still to this day, like it's a special community, and obviously, like I said, it needs change, but it's just like a really special space to be able to grow up in.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I think there's a lot of lessons I learned, like us being Canadian, playing hockey, but team sports in general.
Yeah.
That you take that and you can apply it, like me in my career now. It's like I literally still hear my coach in my ear from my minor midget team being like, Jibbies, be happy, not satisfied.
Yeah.
Like just certain things and learning how to work with people. Like in the position I'm in now, it's like you need to all be on the same page for that team or that department to be firing on all cylinders. And that's something I learned through hockey and just being able to work with other people.
Yeah, it's very cliche, but you know, cliches are cliches because they typically are true, right? And just to add to your point, it helps me so much in my career and the stuff you face in hockey, the adversity you go through. You know, when you get maybe a strongly worded email from someone, it's like, yeah, my coach said a lot worse to me than that growing up, so I can take this. And
I got called a fucking idiot for missing a pass. Like if I said it, I remember I said it to my current manager, but when I was being interviewed, I was like, hey, if I'm doing something wrong, I want you to call me out on it.
Yeah,
I want construction.
Maybe
not an idiot, but
just kidding, yeah.
Like the constructive criticism, I feel like a lot of people can't handle. But it's if you're growing up playing any high level sport, you're gonna need that to get to the next level. Like if I can't take a pass on my backhand, I remember my coach being like, "Jibbies, I'm gonna glue your fucking hands together, like your hands to your stick, like." But you need that in anything you do. It's just being honest with yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's also like, I mean, coaching is a huge thing. Like I was very fortunate to have like pretty special coaches that I still can have a conversation with, and I can still, you know, my parents are friends with some of the coaches that I had growing up. But like, I think those are like pretty integral pieces of like your personal success and also the team success, and also just like what you get out of it too. And now like kind of being on that side of things and like coaching a little bit and like seeing, you know, how obviously the game has changed, and like, I mean, the shit that these kids can do nowadays is wild, but also like the pressures I think is like so much different even from when we grew up, which is like obviously not that long ago.
But it's changed.
But like the social pressures and everything that's going on, I think it's so important to have like integral coaches that can, you know, really help propel you on the proper path, like even if it doesn't include hockey, like it's fine.
I agree. Are you coaching now, or are you?
Yeah, I do a little bit. Yeah, I coached Pee Wee AA last year, and oh man, it was so much fun. Like I originally was like, oh, I'm just gonna show up to like 2 or 3 practices like here and there, but like I fell in love, man. Like it was just like, it was so much fun, and like just like be a part of that again. And yeah, I'm not saying I lost the love for the game, but it was definitely something I like had to get back, and like had to find a way to get back. And I think like being involved in the game again and like coaching a little bit was like huge for me.
I don't know about you, but I like, as someone who kind of separated myself from the game as well for a few years, when you get back into the community, you realize how much you miss it.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah. No. What's the biggest thing that biggest challenge of coaching, or just something that you didn't expect going into it?
I like, it's interesting because I didn't really have any expectations going into coaching really. It was just like, okay, I'm just going to do this. And like, but I think even like you can see like how hard these past couple of years have been for these kids, and like the emotions, you know, like controlling a kid's emotions after a tough shift, you know, if he's crying on the bench. Like it's interesting because I was like, I asked my dad after, I was like, did I cry when I was, you know, but like, I don't know if it's just like, you know, today's world, like unfortunately these kids are going through a lot, and there's a lot that they're constantly thinking about. And I mean, it's too bad because I really don't think we ever felt that much pressure. I don't know if it was the phone world. I don't know if it's like now you can look up any stat in the entire world of like whoever. But I think that was like the biggest thing for me. It was like just like making sure that you're constantly like having little conversations with these kids. Because like I think that was like the biggest difference for me. It's like just like care, like be curious. Like I'll just like ask the kids like randomly during practice, like, what'd you have for dinner? You know, like what's going on? Like
show them that you care.
Yeah, and just like learn. Like I think that's like the most valuable thing is like these kids are gonna get something out of it if you actually like show interest. You know, and like are curious and like ask questions and like so.
Would you say you're more your priority is helping them more with the mental side of things?
Yeah, definitely in some respects. Like I think like the biggest thing with like the mental side of things is like just like be open and like create a culture and create a space that like these kids actually want to be a part of, and like can, you know, like there was a kid on our team, like we'll do our chats before and after, and like I'm not getting in depth with these kids about like my mental health and stuff, but like having those like little reminders every once in a while. Like I had a message from one of the moms at the end of the year, and she was like, I've been kind of waiting to say this, but like the little player that we coached, he was a first year and he suffers from really bad anxiety. And he came in the car the one day and he's like, Coach Smitty, you know, suffers from anxiety too. And it's just like, it's funny to think about, not funny, but like, it's just like interesting now because those would have never been words that would be spoken, you know, like even when we were in Pee Wee, but now it's like, okay, like that space was created and like he feels as though like he's allowed to, you know, kind of be a little bit different and be unique and be weird sometimes and like have to go through it. And I mean, that's totally fine.
Just being himself.
Yeah.
And being confident with that. And that's something I want to talk about and kind of highlight with this conversation is mental health and as a whole, but also within the hockey community and just in the sports world in general. Like, I just want to get your thoughts on that. And from the time you played to now, like, do you see a big difference?
I think like in some respects, yes. Like I think it's still, I mean, we're always going to have that, like, you know, put your work boots on, go to work, you know, grind, do that. But I think it's refreshing to see like athletes now, like big, like high profile athletes, like coming out and being like, hey, like I got shit going on, you know, like I'm struggling. Like, and like, I think that was like the biggest thing on like in my journey. Like if I see DeMar DeRozan go out in a interview that anybody could watch and talk about like his mental health, I'm like, why am I not? You know, like he's got everything. You think like this guy's literally just hasn't made, but then again, like he's like, okay, no, like there's other shit going on, and like I'm struggling. So yeah.
I think so. I had this conversation. I actually had a little interview of my own yesterday about mental health, and I think there's a double-edged sword where I agree you do need, the harsh reality is you do need to continue on because life does move on, but I think we need to be more open and like human about it. Like everyone has fucking issues. Everyone has their own problems. And I think it's being sympathetic and empathetic towards those problems and having open conversations about it without judgment, while at the same time being like, hey, you need to, I know it sucks, but you need to continue moving on, because if not, it's going to spiral or snowball in a negative way. Because I don't know about you, but me personally, like, I had moments where like getting out of bed was a struggle. It was debilitating, and like simple tasks, going to deposit a check at a bank, my anxiety was so bad I couldn't even do that. It's like, the harsh reality is you can't live like that. It doesn't mean you can't address the issues and be open about it, but it's just, it is tough, and I think there's conversations that need to be had.
Yeah, we just brought on a guy on our podcast, and he runs this thing called like the Same Here global like mental health movement, and he's got a bunch of athletes on board, and he's like a firm believer in like the 5 and 5. Like everybody, it's usually like 1 in 5. You know, everybody, like the statistic is like 1 in 5 people suffer from mental illness. 1 in 5 people have this, have that, and he's like, fuck that. He's like, we have to stop grouping everybody. Yeah. He's like, we got to stop putting these labels. He's like, as soon as we put the labels, like that's where the stigma comes about. He's like, if we group people into depression, we group people into OCD, we group people into anxiety, then it's just like, then people are like, well, shit, like I'm in this group. Like, you know, like, I don't know what to do now. Like, so I think like it was interesting to like hear his perspective on it, because it's true. Like everybody's going through it. Everybody's got a story. Everyone
has issues, man. And like the way you deal with it, that's the way you deal with it. And I think just it comes from people being judgmental, where it's like, I said it yesterday, it's like, it's, in my opinion, it's not that hard. It's just be fucking nice, like be kind, be empathetic.
Yeah, it's so easy, but like unfortunately for some reason it just gets overlooked. But it's just like, that goes a long way. And like the biggest, you know, question I get after a speech is like, how do I start this conversation with, you know, a friend who's struggling? And honestly, like it just boils down to just like empathize with them by like sharing a little bit about your own story, you know, like just have that pure empathy, and trust me, like it goes a long way.
It does. And just talking about your own story, like that's something I want to get into, because I've said it to you twice now, both on Zoom and in there. I have the utmost respect for you, man. Just everything you're doing, what you've been through, and using that traumatic experience in a positive manner, like kudos to you. And like I want to get to know more about how it started and how you started Not Alone, how you got involved with the podcast, and just the public speaking in general. So do you just want to?
Yeah, I'll give you the kind of the, yeah, well, I appreciate that a ton, you know, that means a lot. I didn't really have any anticipations of doing like anything I'm doing. Yeah. Like the clothing line, the podcast, like speaking, like I really had no anticipations of doing that. And like, I think I was so like closed-minded to this journey of like the mental health, especially. Like I was just like so closed-minded and so like put off by it, because I just like, I never really understood it. Like I never like took the time to like actually like realize that there's a lot of layers to grief. There's a lot of layers to trauma. There's a lot of layers to like mental health in general. And I think unfortunately we're so quick to like diminish our own story, because we're like, well, somebody's got it worse. And absolutely, somebody's got it worse and somebody's got it really good. You know, like it's just a case of, you have to understand that like your story matters. And I think for me, like the biggest thing, I pushed it off, suffered in silence, you know, bottled everything up, and kind of just put everything on the back burner, because I honestly thought that, I don't know if it's being an athlete, I don't know if it's being a male, I don't know if it's being, you know, whatever it is, but I was just like a firm believer that if I take care of my physical health, like everything will just follow, you know, like everything will just like, okay, like my mental and emotional will, you know, kick it into overdrive too, and be good. Yeah. But I think it's just like, I finally had the second time when I went back to Humboldt to play, the physical stuff aside, like I really did put an emphasis on like recovering physically, you know, like suffering that many injuries. It wasn't obviously easy.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, so like, I mean, I put in all the work physically, and up until this point, like I just like had no desire to put in like any of like the mental or emotional work. And like that's nobody's fault. Like realistically, like I have no ill will against anybody close to me, because how do you bring up that conversation? You know, like just going through something that I hope never happens to anybody ever again. Like, it was a very unique situation where there was so much trauma involved and so much grief, but also like a lot of spotlight. And I think like grieving in the spotlight is a weird process, and it's like hard to do. But after I left Humboldt, or while I was deciding if I should leave Humboldt or not, like my billet mom, who's like, I mean, I lucked out. Like, my billets are amazing. They're like second parents to me. And I shared, you know, I'm just not feeling it anymore, and I think I need to go home. And she looked me dead in the eyes, and she's like, I say this in every speech because it's like, I'm not saying this conversation changed my life, but it's like definitely a reason, like, I'm on the path now. But she looked at me and she said, you're going to promise me that you seek help. And I originally was like, oh my God, like, what did you just say? Like, help? Like, sorry? But then I like started to unravel it and like think to myself, like, me trying so hard to like suffer in silence and bottle everything up and not show emotion and not be vulnerable, and because I thought I was going to be weak or, you know, shame attached or this or that. Me trying so hard to like mask all that like really did start to like affect the relationships with the loved ones in my life. And I like put myself in their shoes, and then I'm like, what am I doing? You know, like why am I not embarking on this journey? You know, like, there's no reason I should be holding back, and there's no reason I shouldn't be letting people in, because like everybody around me will listen, you know, like my people will listen. And I think that was the biggest thing. I was like scared of like how I was going to be perceived, you know, like I don't want to be the guy at the party that's like, okay, you know, Smitty's getting emotional again. And like, it's weird because like I've had many moments now where it's like the people that you surround yourself with will listen because they just want to understand, you know, like they just want to like, they're not going to ever fully maybe understand how I'm feeling. But at the end of the day, like if they can just unravel it like that much more, then I think that's why I value relationships so much more now. And like I can honestly say like the relationships I have with a lot of my friends and my family have like deepened so much over these past couple of years, just because of the straight fact that like when a conversation needs to be had, we can have it, and there's no shame attached, there's no weakness attached, there's nothing like that. And like that's kind of like what led me on this path of like, okay, like this is my journey, you know, like I hate putting myself first. I don't want to put myself first, but this is my journey, and I'm allowed to be happy, you know, like I'm allowed to like figure out what works for me, and I'm allowed to move forward with my grief, you know, like grief is a wild thing. Grief is like a complex thing, and like comes in waves, you know, 100-foot waves or 5-foot waves, you know, like you just really don't know ever how to feel. But now it's like I can hold on to my grief, and I can do what works for me. And I think like all these little things that started to happen like allowed me to just like be open-minded to the fact of like, if I can go share my story, it's healing for me. But if I can, you know, impact one person in the audience, win-win, you know, like that's like the ultimate goal. And I think it's I mean, I've had many conversations after speeches that just like blow my mind in like a very like unique way, you know. And it's hard, because like it's hard to balance that sometimes, because like you obviously want to get invested and you want to help and you want to make an impact, but then again, like I also have to respect the fact that like I'm still going through it, and like this will be something that is forever with me.
So that's an interesting thing. I heard you say that, I don't know whether it was on one of your podcasts or an Instagram post. You just said this is a lifelong journey, and dealing with it is a lifelong journey. And as you said earlier, you're going through waves, ups and downs. What's that been like, and like what are kind of the phases of that journey been like so far? Like,
yeah, I think like the weird part is like you never really know like how to feel, especially like even like the first anniversary. I think there was just like so much anticipation for it, and like the build up to it was like almost worse than the actual day, because you're like, okay, well I want to do everything in my power to, you know, honor them and love them and respect them, because those are 16 amazing people, and I want to do everything in my power to, you know, make them proud and do this. But I think honestly just like I've kind of just been going day by day, and I think like, yeah, like don't get me wrong, like I'm a firm believer that like setting goals and looking forward into the future is a great thing, and I hope it works, or I hope that people are doing it because it works. But for me, it's just like I'm just gonna, live day by day, and whatever comes. And like, I have to be able to get to a place where I can accept my grief, and like I can accept the fact that on a birthday of somebody we lost, like I'm gonna feel a little bit different than on a regular day, like and I think that's the other thing with grief is like there's a lot of triggers, and it's just something like I never really experienced, like hearing a song at a party and like instantly being like, oh my God, like this takes me right back, like where I would usually probably just push it off and just like keep partying, having fun, doing my thing. But now it's just like I'm allowed to go outside and take time to bawl my fucking eyes out, like I'm allowed to do that, and I need to do that. And I'm not saying that every time I, have a conversation with my friends, I'm bawling or like getting meaningful or getting deep or whatever it is, but especially on the grief aspect of it, like it is a journey, and like some days you feel like shit. But I think like we just had Chris Johnson on our podcast, and I mean, he said it perfectly, like doing one positive thing for yourself every day is weirdly a huge benefit in the long run. Like he's ran for 900 days in a row. It's insane, but he's like, it's something that I know that is going to be positive in my day. And I think like just finding what works for you in your own little, healing journey is like the biggest thing. And like, even for me, like I really, as hard as it is, like I really do value the 16 families. Like I want to be able to have a relationship with them. And I think like being able to rely on them in a unique way is important to me. And like I really do value the fact that I can call my billet brother's mom and just have a conversation. Like unfortunately Parker's not here with us, but if I can still have a relationship with his mother, who was a main reason why he was the person he was, then that's special to me, and that's something that I need to do. So
that's fucking incredible, man. Like honestly, that's all I can say, that your whole mindset is just incredible. Like I feel like that the self-awareness and the ability to reflect and kind of take in all of that grief and emotion and deal with it in the way you're dealing with it is impressive. There's no other way I can put it.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah.
Just what are some things, I know you said that staying in touch with the 16 families is a big part of you dealing with it, but what are some other things that you need to do to make sure your mental health is on point and you're feeling at your best?
Yeah, like it's interesting because I think for a lot of people it's trial and error. And I think like the hardest part is like actually doing the trial and like trying to figure out if it's going to work. And like usually sometimes you don't see results. Like it's not like you have these like perfect results that you can look at and be like, I felt this much better this day compared to that day because I did this. Like it's sometimes you just have to really give it a shot and be open to it. And I think for me, like it could be the athlete background, but like honestly just like being active. Like I think when I know that when things start to get shitty, it's because I haven't been at the gym in 5 days, or if I haven't got a sweat in, like that's something that just works for me.
Growing up playing hockey, mental health is not talked about. There's that stigma of, oh, you're being a pussy, or you're being soft, those kinds of things. Obviously, from my perspective, I've seen nothing but positive feedback of what you're doing with that space. What have you noticed, and like what are some of the biggest things? Fuck me. I blacked out there. Basically what I'm asking you is, what are the issues with hockey and mental health, and how can we fix it?
Yeah, like I've thought about this a lot, especially with like obviously what's been going on, and I mean I really do like wish I had like a proper answer. But I think it's just like, I mean, obviously we play team sport, like and it's a case of you're constantly, thinking about the team, which is by all means one of the most important things. But I think, really starting to like value the fact that like this is a journey, this is a team journey, but like you're also on your own little individual journey as well. And like, constantly being able to, challenge yourself and also just like realize that there's more than just hockey, you know, like even my co-host, like he kind of has reshaped my mindset in that sense too, because like we're so devoted to it, and that's great. But I think even like with it kind of goes aligns with like working and like having a job, and like I think we're so quick to like stick onto something and kind of get into that monotonous routine. And for some people that works, like that's good. But I think a quote I heard, you know, like just like being able to create those new neural pathways in your brain like every single day, and like doing something spontaneous every single day for your own good is like really beneficial in the long run. Just because like why are we not trying to find like our other passions, and why are we not trying to like have fun doing this and create more experiences? And but I think it's just like we have to be able to try and just figure out a way that like this is a space that like you want to come to better yourself as a hockey player, but also just like as a human being. And I think like our coach in Humboldt like was the epitome of that. Like he created a culture of just selfless leaders who serve their community, but also just played the game they love, you know, like being able to create a community around it and be able to relate. I think that's like the other thing too, is like we just don't relate enough, and like we don't like try and create something that is relatable for people. I don't know if it's because it is an uncomfortable space and it is very difficult, but I think, you know, being able to get down to the nitty-gritty of like having that relatability and having that comfortability in it as well is huge. And like with team atmospheres, like I said, you're constantly, I feel like just, you know, like it is a team thing, and you want the team to have success, but like if you can be a good human being as well, like why not, you know, like, and just like have that like open-mindedness for your teammates, and like have that kindness for your teammates sometimes. I mean, don't get me wrong, like having the banter in the room and giving the boys grief is awesome, like it's fun, but like also like have that awareness, not so much self-awareness, but like have that awareness of like your people,
the emotional
have like even in Humboldt when I was there, I was definitely like a dressing room person. Like I love being with the guys. I love being like the glue. Yeah, I love being the glue guy. I love it. Even with beer league now, like I love fucking around. Like
I'm similar to
yeah. But like there was a short period where I kind of just like was like, what am I doing? You know, like I'm kind of just gonna go mute for a couple days and see the like. I wasn't really looking for like a reaction. I was just more like taking some time to think of like, is this something I want to be doing? You know, like only playing a certain amount of minutes every night, but also having to be that like outgoing, bubbly person at all times in the room. It's draining. And I think like that reaction I received of like all of my leaders coming to me and be like, what's going on? You know, like, what can we do for you? Do you want more ice time? Like, I'll talk to Darcy, you know, like, I think just like that's why it was so special in our group, just because like we were able to like offer that reassurance to our people like at all times. And it's just like shit happens and shit's hard and this game sucks sometimes, but like tomorrow's a new day, and like we're a family.
It's nice knowing you have 15 other guys in your corner.
Yeah, it's like, it's crazy because growing up in Canada for so many kids, hockey is not just a game, it's like an identity. It's your life, right?
It's crazy.
It's
like
crazy.
How
many of us just like, we're like, okay, got to make the NHL, like got to play hockey, like that's it, right? We don't think about anything else really. And at the end of the day, it's just a game, and it takes, you know, usually the game being taken away from you for you to realize that, right? And it's so many of my great friends I met through hockey, and you just realize it's like, wow, you know, I'm so happy I met these people through hockey, but thank God our relationships are so much more than that, and thank God there's so much more life to experience.
Oh my God, yeah. I think you have the blinders on.
You do,
absolutely. When you're growing up, like especially at that young of an age, you kind of have an ego, and you're like, oh, I play AAA hockey. As you were saying earlier, you look back and I was like, holy fuck, like what was I thinking?
Even in hindsight, like, I mean, we just like don't appreciate it enough, and like we don't enjoy it enough. Like Riley is like my podcast guy, like he is perfect for it, because like he just made the biggest decision in his life, and to leave the NHL. And like I chatted with him today, and it was like, your identity has been an NHL hockey player for how many years? and like losing that and like leaving that space, like it's like what do you tell your younger self, you know? Like it's just a case of like enjoy other things, like enjoy life, obviously enjoy the game you're playing and love it, but also like just remember like this, there's more, you know, like there's more relationships out there, there's more conversations out there, there's more perspectives out there. Like just don't be so singular focused, you know, be able to diversify and have some fun here, have some fun there. And like, yeah, I don't know, like there's really not a recipe for it obviously, but I think being able to just expand.
I think being open-minded and not being so quick to judge people who are like doing artistic things or doing something that's different than hockey. Like, as you were saying, there's way more to life. Yeah. And this, honest to God, doing the podcast has brought so much joy to my life where it's funny, the younger me, like, I think back, I remember because I had to retire because of concussions, and some girls like, oh, like, this was meant to happen. I was like, shut up. Like, shut up. Yeah. And if, honest to God, if I didn't stop playing hockey, I never would have pursued this. I never would have done stuff with mental health. I never would have done a hell of a lot of things that I'm doing that bring so much enjoyment to my life if I would have continued down the path of hockey. So I'm glad I was able to kind of not like break away from it at that age and take the blinders off and experience more than just the hockey world.
Yeah, it's wild, dude. Like, I mean, I love the game still and I appreciate the game so much, but like even for me, like having to make the decision to step away from competitive hockey was like a tough decision, but it's also like I look back and it's like that's a decision I needed to make, and it's actually led to a lot of beautiful opportunities. Because like I was fully prepared to just like stick it out. I was like, you know what, like I can do this, like I'm gonna let everybody down, like I don't want to do that, like I can keep going. But it's just like, I mean, just be with your people and, you know, like figure out what works for you, and like also just give everybody a chance. Like I just did some speaking engagements for oil rig workers up northern Alberta, and like I get into the room and I'm like, these are big burly fucking tough men, like smoke darts, like yeah,
crush pints.
Yeah, and like I'm thinking to myself like, oh geez, like how are they gonna take this message of like, but I had like a 65-year-old like old rough tough like oil worker come up to me and be like, you made me want to keep writing again. And it's just like something like that. It's just like, fuck, like I would have been so close-minded to that originally, and I would have kind of just like had this preconceived notion about how this person's going to be. But it's just like, he sat there and listened to my story and got something from it. Like, that's important.
Valuable.
Yeah, yeah.
It blows my mind, just the fact that we're doing this. As you said, your younger self, I would have never imagined having a podcast. As I'm sure you're the same way. At the fucking Rink of Dreams. It's been pretty incredible, and the conversation, I could continue talking and just listening to you talk for hours, man. Like, as I said earlier, it's impressive, but we got to wrap it up here. I have one final question for you. What is a good time ahead for you? What's something you're looking forward to? Personal, anything.
Yeah. Going to Aspen. I think that'll be really fun at the end of January.
Yeah.
I mean, usually a vacation is like you go somewhere like nice and warm, especially living in Western Alberta.
Get a sunburn.
Yeah, but like I think even that trip, like there's a bunch of us going, and I think just like making memories there and like having those experiences, and like that's something I probably wouldn't have done before. Yeah. But it's just like also like, why not? You know, like let's do this. So I think that's honestly, I have good times that I'm looking forward to, you know, every day, you know, like every day that, once again, as cliche as it sounds, every day they wake up it's a fucking beautiful thing.
Gratitude is the attitude, man. I heard that quote and I was like, I'm taking that. But thank you again, man. Like seriously, I really appreciate it. That was unreal. And to anyone listening, remember, you're not alone, and there are good times ahead.
I love it.
Let's fucking go, boys.
Good. Oh my God, it's chilly.
Oh my God, I was shaking.